Today I want to talk about a subject called thought culture. Now, this is a subject that's become really interesting to me as of late. I only just recently learned of the term thought culture, but I've been quite familiar with the actual phenomenon of thought culture for a good many years now. And I have watched a lot of videos by YouTube commentators such as Tommy Sotomayor, Philip Scott, Zillionaire the Rapper. I've watched a lot of videos by these commentators, and they very often talk about thought culture in their videos. And I gotta tell you, these guys are 100% dead on accurate, nail on the head correct when they talk about this stuff. They are 100% right. I'm a woman myself. I'm a very educated and professional woman, but I'm a woman too, and I know exactly what they're talking about. I see this shit all the time myself. Now, I realize that these guys usually tend to focus on black women as the subject of their videos, and I assume it's probably because these are black men and they probably feel more comfortable focusing on women in their own race and culture. But I'm here to tell you, it is not just black women that display ratchet thought behavior. That is found in every race. I have seen it in white women. I've seen it in black women. I've seen it in Latino women and Asian women. I've seen it in all women. I'm a white woman myself, and I have seen plenty of hoodrat ratchet thought behavior from other white women. And it's not even just urban hood rat women too. And again, these guys, they're from the city, and they usually tend to focus on what they call these urban ghetto hood rat bitches. Well, again, I'm here to tell you, it's not just urban women that can display ratchet thought behavior. I have lived in all different areas of the country, and even out in the sticks, in the middle of nowhere where you've got all the hillbilly people, it exists there too. You've got poor white trash hillbilly hood ratchet thought women. You don't have to live in the urban city or be of a particular race or a particular socioeconomic level to act like a ratchet hood rat thought. That can be found everywhere, and I've seen it everywhere. Now, I want to tell you about this one particular very trashy ratchet hood rat thought that I had the utter misfortune of having to know years ago when I moved to the city. Now, the only reason why I had the misfortune of having to even know of this hood rat thought's existence was because we had a mutual friend in common. And that in itself was shocking to me, because the mutual friend that she and I shared, he was not trashy at all. This was actually a really nice, normal gentleman. He owned his own business. He owned his own home. He didn't do drugs. He didn't even drink alcohol. He was just a really clean-cut, funny, fun-to-be-around guy. I spent a lot of time hanging out at his house. He had a lot of barbecues, a lot of parties. I enjoyed being around him. But the one thing I never understood about him was that he chose to have friends who were ratchet, trashy, hood rat hoes. And he had a lot of friends who were great people. He had a really good circle of friends, but for some reason, and I've never understood why, he allowed ratchet, hood rat thought whores into his circle of friends. And I never understood that, because it just didn't make any sense to me why someone of his caliber, a successful, classy, respectable gentleman of his caliber, would want to lower himself by associating with such garbage as these ratchet, hood rat thought whores. I never understood that. Anyway, this particular hood rat thought worked as a stripper, surprise, surprise. And at the time that I knew her years ago, she was about 25, 26 years old, and she had been stripping since she was 16 years old. And this is the only job she had ever known. This girl had never done any kind of work ever in her life other than stripping. That is literally the only job, the only line of work she had any experience in whatsoever. She had no college education. I think she may have had a high school diploma, but no college education, no other job experience, nothing other than stripping. And she'd been doing that since she was 16 years old. And I know she was doing it since she was 16 because I had heard her talking about it before, and she even laughed about how her mother allowed her to go work as a stripper as a 16-year-old minor. Now, I don't know if she lied about her age in order to do this, because I know that you do have to be of legal age to work as a stripper. They're supposed to check your ID. I don't know if maybe she went to work at one of those nasty piece of shit dive clubs in the city where they don't really care about making sure that everything is legal. I don't know. All I know is that she started stripping at 16 with her mother's permission and had been doing it her entire life and had literally no other job experience but that. And on top of that, she was an extremely emotionally, mentally messed up girl. I mean, this girl had major issues. She was just an utter train wreck mess. We're talking major daddy issues. Her father had left her when she was a child. She never knew her father very well. She was raised by a single mother. Obviously, that she grew up with these issues. She never took any steps to address them by seeking out any kind of professional therapy or counseling to help her heal from this. So the older she got, the worse she got. It's like as she got older, it's like her issues just got worse and worse. And what was so sad and disturbing was that it's like she seemed like she was proud to have these issues. She would actually brag and laugh about how she was emotionally unstable and violent tempered, and how she couldn't keep a man or a stable relationship because of these issues. And I always thought, what the fuck? I mean, like, who brags about being a psycho basket case? Who brags about that? Who would ever think that that is cute and funny or attractive, to laugh and brag and gloat about how you are so emotionally unstable that you can't maintain healthy relationships with any other human being? Who the fuck celebrates that? But she did. This girl would constantly brag about how she couldn't keep a man because she was psycho and crazy and jealous and violent tempered and every insult you could think of, she would admit that about herself and brag about it as if it was funny. I mean, it was just the most disgusting, sad, and pathetic thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. Now let me tell you about this trashy hood rat Thot's social media posts. Oh my good fucking lord. This bitch's Instagram account was basically made up of only 3 different types of content. Trashy pictures and videos of her stripping at the club, close-up selfies of her eyebrows because she thought that her eyebrows were so perfect, and close-up selfies of herself blowing weed smoke out of her mouth. Those 3 things right there, that's it. That was what her entire Instagram account was comprised of. Trashy-ass stripper pics, pictures of her eyebrows, and pictures of herself blowing weed smoke out of her mouth. That was her entire persona. That was basically her entire life on social media. That was who she was. That was it. Every single day when this bitch woke up and got out of bed, her only objectives in life were smoking weed, making sure her eyebrows looked just right, and being a stripper. That was it. That was all she was about. And her Facebook posts, oh my God, the Facebook posts were even worse. This bitch would actually post on Facebook about her sex life. And I mean, she would go into detail about specific sex acts that she would do with these bum-ass thugs that she would hook up with all the time. This bitch actually, I swear to God, this bitch actually one time posted on Facebook about how she had her asshole eaten out the night before. She actually posted about that. She made a Facebook post bragging about how she had had her asshole eaten out the night before. As if anybody wants to fucking know that. Who the fuck posts about having their butthole eaten out? Who posts about that? And who would even want to know about that? Why would anyone think that anyone else would want to know about that? This bitch has even posted Facebook posts bragging about her vagina. She actually made a Facebook post once bragging about what, and now this is her words, not mine, this is her direct quote, bragging about what a bomb-ass pussy she had and how her pussy was so great that every man out there was just dying to have it. She literally posted about that on Facebook, bragging about her bomb ass pussy. And let me emphasize this. The only reason I was even able to see this content is because she had it set to public. The bitch didn't even try to hide this nasty ratchet shit. She would post this shit on Instagram and Facebook where the entire fucking world could see it. She made no effort whatsoever to hide this nasty shit. Now I think I understand why she never had any other job other than stripping. Any prospective employer out there could easily find this shit. If she ever applied to a normal job somewhere, all they would ever have to do is Google her name and they would immediately be bombarded with an online smorgasbord of nasty, filthy, trashy pictures and videos of her stripping in the club, stripping in her living room, blowing weed smoke out of her mouth, posting statuses on Facebook about her pussy and how she had her butthole eaten out the night before. No wonder no one else ever wanted to hire this bitch for a regular job. Who the fuck would want someone like that working for them in any kind of normal employment, normal establishment of employment? That right there is probably why she's been a stripper her whole life. She is so devoid of any type of class or dignity that she couldn't fit in any type of normal job. She wouldn't be able to function there. Nobody would want her. I mean, this bitch literally she destroyed her own name and reputation posting this shit online where the whole world can see it. Anything you post online, it never goes away. It is there forever. And this bitch had just catalogs, I mean catalogs of home videos of her stripping at the club and doing all sorts of nasty ratchet hood rat shit. I mean, and that'll be out there forever. She'll never escape that. It'll be out there the rest of her life. She ruined herself. And then there were her non-stop social media posts where she would brag about how violent she was and talk about how she was always on the verge of being 2 seconds away from losing her temper and beating the shit out of some woman or other all the time. This was a constant thing with her. From one day to the next, it was always something with her. She was always mad at somebody. Every fucking day of her life, she was always on the verge of getting ready to beat somebody up over the pettiest of shit. And I do mean the pettiest of shit. I saw posts where she would just rant and rave about how she would want to beat up some particular woman just because she didn't like the way that her eyebrows looked. I like, for real, she would actually rant on social media about how much she hated some other woman just because she hated the way that the other woman's eyebrows looked. I mean, who the fuck does that? How mentally unstable, how fucked up in the head and psychotic do you have to be to lose your temper to the point of wanting to physically fight someone just because you don't like the way that their eyebrows looked? I mean, it took literally nothing at all to set her off into a violent rage. It could be the way someone's eyebrows looked. It could be the way that they dressed. She didn't like their clothing. It could be because some woman looked twice at some douchebag thug that she was banging. I mean, literally anything could set this bitch off because she was so mentally unstable and emotionally unbalanced. She was constantly wanting to fight everyone. I swear to God, this is what she lived for. Her only purpose in life was to fight people. She was just constantly angry and pissed off at everyone and always wanting to fight everyone. This was her life. Now, I'm a pretty educated woman, so I know a thing or two about a lot of things, including psychology. So it was always very obvious to me what this girl's real problem was. Every time I read one of her disgusting social media posts and every time I witnessed her violent, trashy behavior, it was always very obvious to me where her issues were coming from. She may have had a lot of other people fooled, but she wasn't fooling me one bit. I saw right through her act. I knew exactly where this girl's issues were stemming from. This girl was miserable. She hated herself and she hated her life. She hated growing up without a father. She hated not having an education. She hated having to work as a stripper. She actually used to insult and make fun of other women who had educations and normal professional jobs. She used to call them stupid and lame and boring and pathetic. And you know why she did that? Because she was jealous of them. She was jealous of anyone that had any type of quality about themselves or any type of life experience that she did not have. She hated her life. And the more she bragged about how great and awesome her life was, and the more she bragged about how everyone was so jealous of her, the more I could tell that she was miserable. That was her defense mechanism. That was her way of dealing with the painful knowledge that she was a piece of shit and her life was an utter train wreck. And I believe this is the issue behind all ratchet hood rats and thots that act this way. This is what is really driving that behavior. They're miserable. Happy people don't act like hood rats. These girls are miserable, and that's why they act so disgusting. They know damn well that their lives are train wreck failures. They know that they're pieces of shit. But they can't admit that out loud. It's too painful for themselves to face that truth, so they do whatever they can to hide it. And it seems to be that the most common way, the most universal way that hood rats seem to deal with the ugly, painful truth about themselves and their lives is to just completely deflect it and pretend that the opposite is true. The shittier they are and the shittier their lives are, the more they will brag and pretend about how great and perfect they and their lives are. I recently had an epiphany about this particular hood rat. See, I used to notice that she had this very odd obsession or fixation on the topic of old strippers. Old strippers. Now, that may sound funny to you, but I kid you not. She was constantly bringing up the topic of old strippers all the time for no real apparent reason. It's like she was fixated on this subject. She was constantly thinking about it and constantly bitching about it. She would bitch about old strippers in her social media posts. Anytime she had some sort of hood rat beef with any other woman that she worked with in the stripping industry, she would tell them that someday they were going to be old strippers when they were 30 and 40 years old. She was constantly obsessing over this thought of old strippers. And at the time, I thought it was the weirdest thing because, number one, she wasn't that far from 30 years old herself. She was about 25, 26 years old, not that far from 30. And number two, I used to think to myself, why the fuck does she care about other women? Like what does it matter to her if there's other women out there working as dancers who are 30 years old or older or whatever? Why does she care? In what way does that affect her life? And who the hell is she to make predictions about other people's lives and tell them that someday they're going to be old strippers? I mean, who the hell is she? Is she a psychic? You know, what does she know about their lives? Nothing. Of course, knowing what I know now when I look back at this, it is absolutely crystal clear where this strange fixation of hers was coming from. It's been several years since then, and if you do the math, by now she is in her 30s. And what do you think she's still doing with her life now that she's in her 30s? Yep, you guessed it. She is still working as a stripper, even though she herself is now past the age of 30. The same hood rat bitch who used to constantly obsess over the idea of women over the age of 30 working as strippers is now herself working as a stripper past the age of 30. I know exactly where this was coming from. This bitch looked down the road to her own future and saw exactly where she was headed in her future. She knew exactly what was going to become of her. She knew that she was never going to leave this industry and that she herself would still someday be dancing naked on a stage when she's 40-something years old, all wrinkly and saggy tits and premenopausal, still dancing, still shoving her ass cheeks in nasty men's faces for $2 at 40-something years old, because what the hell else is she gonna do? She has no education. She has no job skills. She has no other job experience other than stripping. What the hell else can she do? Nothing. This is her life, and she knew that. And the only way that she could deal with that painful truth about where her life was headed was to deflect and project it onto other women. That's why she would accuse other women and tell them that someday they were going to be old strippers. That's why she hated on and insulted and talked trash about other women who were dancers past the age of 30, because she knew that that is exactly where she was headed. That's what it was. She knew it. She knew what was going to become of her, and it's happening right now. It's happening. Her future is happening. She's in her 30s and still stripping, and guess what? In another 10 years, when she's 40-something, she's still going to be stripping. She may even be doing it in her 50s. The only good thing I can say about this hood rat is that she does not have any children. She has not procreated. Hood rats usually have a ton of kids. They usually spit them out every 18 months or so, but this particular hood rat has not. And thank God for that, because I could not imagine someone like her being responsible for the life and well-being and upbringing of another helpless human being. And I know they're out there. I know there are women who are just like her and possibly even worse, who do have kids. I know so because I've watched all these videos about them. I know they're out there, and it's absolutely horrific. It makes me shudder to think of people like her out there raising children. So that right there might be the only sign of intelligence she's ever had, is that for whatever reason, whether it's just pure selfishness, or I don't know, but the only intelligent thing I can say that she's probably ever done in her entire life is take the necessary measures to not get knocked up and spit out a bunch of kids. Thank God that she has not done that. Anyway, that's all for today, but I will be making more videos about this same topic again in the future, so if you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, feel free, or just check back in whenever you feel like it. But I will be making more videos on this subject again because, as I said earlier, this is a really interesting topic for me. I'm really fascinated by it. And it seems to be such a pervasive problem in our society anymore, and there seems to be so many different facets of this issue that I think should be looked at and discussed. So definitely expect more videos on this topic from me again in the future. But I hope you enjoyed the video today, and I'll see you next time.